The Senate and House Agriculture and Rural Development Conference Committee is called back to order here Sunday, May 16th, approximately 1:33 p.m. Thank you for your time, members. Chair Sundin and I have been working through several policy provisions. At this point in time, the plan will be that we've found agreement with several of the provisions between the House bill and the Senate bill. Finance provisions will not be accounted for or covered today, and we're going to just move forward with adopting the areas that we've agreed upon. I know we've talked off and on about some of the different areas, but members, we've got the final last couple of details worked out that held us up yesterday, and just found a path to move forward with. So with that, I recognize it's Sunday afternoon, not a time we want to make precedent or habit of doing much conference committee work if we don't have to, but in recognizing a great compromise and the agreements I think we've got going here, we can get the policy provisions done and wrapped up with the conference report tomorrow on the House, Senate and House Senate file. So I think we'd have to go to the Senate first, and then we'd send it to the House. But with agreement, let's get it off the table. That's our Chair Sundin and my wishes, as well as I know many others. And so what we'll do is going to try to make this as expedient as possible. No language has been posted for the most part, and we'll have council go through each provision. And I think just to keep it straightforward and simple, we'll probably just, council will give us the language of the motion to make, and then Chair Sundin or myself, but Chair Sundin on most of them, I think we'll just move the motion. And then if there's discussion, feel free to ask questions. Otherwise, we'll move along, get it adopted, and then council can work with revisers to finish the conference report. So hope that's lays out the blueprint, and we'll try to move it along as swiftly as possible and let you enjoy the rest of this nice, beautiful fishing opener weekend and sunshine outside. So family time and whatever else you have. So it'll just be that standing between us and adjournment. And so we'll try to move along as quickly as possible.
Chair Westrom?
Yes, Senator, or Joel, excuse me.
Senator Anderson has.
Senator Anderson, question?
Mr. Chair, I was just wondering if council is going to use the side-by-side to kind of give us a direction of where these amendments are going to go into, if that would be helpful. I'm just looking at the side-by-side now, and I know you've got amendments up, but if it would give us an idea where exactly these amendments fit into.
I'll let Mr. Knopf or Joel touch on that, and then I'll just go to Chair Sundin for any preliminary comments as we go into this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great, Mr. Knopf.
Mr. Chairman and members, I think the way to do this is you've got that side-by-side chart. I think would be the best to follow along, unless you want to look at the language. It does reference in that chart where the language is located. So if you want to follow along in the language, that's fine too. The first two things I'll mention were both done. They were same and similar. The Good Food Access with participation in the bio-incentive program, biomass sourcing plan exemption. So those have been adopted. The next one that we'll move to is House Section 1 on page R21. And the motion, as I understand it, would be to adopt this section as amended by the Senate A33 amendment.
Chair Sundin, is that your understanding as well? And feel free to make that motion. And then if you have any other, before we do that, Chair Sundin, do you have any preliminary comments as we start walking through this?
Nothing of substance other than the things you've covered already, but we're going to pass the baton around as far as who's going to be making the motions. But sure. if you'll entertain Representative Pawlowski for the first couple of motions, that would be terrific on the R21.
So Mr. Knopf, is there any more to explain on this, or else it's moved to adoption of the A3? Is that?
Unless people have
A33.
A33. Questions. I mean, the A33 just makes sure that the ag person is not a elected official or a candidate for public office. And so it's the House position with the Senate A33 amendment.
Okay, so, and that's probably good, Mr. Knopf, to just give everybody kind of the summary of the changes, because we Chair Sundin and I and staff have been submersed in that, but want to make sure everybody gets the gist of it. But Mr. Knopf recapped it pretty well. It just clarify that these couldn't be used for this public promotion. So Representative Pulaski, do you want to make a motion to adopt that as
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to adopt it.
Okay. So the Senate Representative Pulaski moves to adopt the A33 amendment language. Mr. Knopf, is that correct?
The A33 amendment and the provision, you might as well just adopt it all in one motion. We're building a bill here. We don't have to be too technical about it.
Representative Pulaski moves the adoption of the provision along with the A33 amendment. Any discussion, members?
Mr. Chair, Representative Vang has her hand up.
Representative Vang.
Oh, Mr. Chair, just a minor clarification on, I'm looking at what the amendments that are posted, and I see the A32 instead of the A33. Is that what staff is referring to?
The A33 amendment, I believe.
Oh, Mr. Chair, yes, I misread it. Sorry about that, Mr. Chair. It's the A33 amendment.
It is the A33, right, Mr. Knopf?
Yes, and that was posted.
Okay, Representative, does that make sense to you? It is the A33 amendment.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, it's Representative Pulaski. I'm looking at the A33. I'm looking at line 1.3, page 18, line 30, after the period, insert the publicity representative for the Department of Agriculture must not be an elected official or candidate for public office. That's the amendment?
Correct.
All right. That's the amendment. That's what I'm moving.
Representative Vang, any clarifications or question?
That's good. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other discussion, members? Having no further discussion, unmute and turn your cameras on. All those in favor of the Pulaski amendment to adopt this provision along with the A33 amendment signify by saying aye and raise your thumb. Aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion prevails. Thank you, Representative Pulaski. Mr. Knopf, next provision, if you want to summarize it for everybody as the agreed upon language, that'd be great. We'll just keep moving through them.
The next provision is a Senate only. It was section 1 of the Article 2 in the Senate bill. It's the report required for wolf depredation compensation. And there's no amendments to that.
So the motion would be Mr. Knopf.
Just to adopt the Senate position.
So, Mr. Chair, I think this is Representative Pulaski. I think I'm moving that amendment too.
Mr. Representative Pulaski moves this provision as specified by Senate Council. Any questions, members? And this is simply a report that we require on other things. So it was found fairly agreeable by everybody. So no further questions. All those to unmute and turn your cameras on. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion prevails. Amendment is adopted. Mr. Knopf, next provision, please.
Well, Mr. Chair, we're going to skip over some House only provisions where there's no agreement. I don't know if I need to mention those, but if somebody wants to know what happened with those, we can explain that. I'll move on to a House only sustainable agricultural demonstration grant eligibility modified, and it's the House position. There are no amendments to that.
And Mr. Knopf, what page is that on, or just for reference? Or
Mr.
what?
Chair, on page R24 and 25.
Okay, Representative Pulaski, do you want to move that motion as well?
Mr. Chair, so moved. I'll move that motion.
Okay. Any discussion to the sustainable grant by the House members? Seeing none, all those in favor, turn your cameras on, signify by saying aye and raise your thumb. Aye.
I,
Motion, all those opposed, same sign. The motion prevails. Thank you, Representative Pulaski. Mr. Knopf, next provision.
Yeah, the next one,
Page
well,
number?
we're not doing the pesticide fee from the House, but there, I do want to mention that the pesticide applicator license for sanitizers and disinfectants, that's already been adopted. I think it was the 826, Senate 826 amendment. So we don't need to do that. That's already in. And the ACRA payment limit increased. There is going to be no increase in this bill, but there is a Senate position as amended by the A31 amendment, which provides for a report on the ACRA payment limit. So if you find the A30, you'll be adopting the A31 amendment into the conference report.
You want to move the A31 amendment?
Mr. Chair, what page number is that on?
Mr. Chair and Senator Anderson, we're not adopting anything from the side-by-side. It's just adopting the A31.
Okay,
That's it in total.
okay.
And so Senator Anderson, to your point, what this language in the A31 motion amendment would be is we had ACRA language raising the cap in the Senate bill. The House had proposed, at least at this time, to put together a committee or a group with the Department of Ag to come back with, study this and come back with what some recommended steps could be, as well as the amount of raising this for inflation next year by February. And so that's the language we agreed upon at this point in time.
Very good.
Issues, members, several of them, some have been taken off the table. Some of them we've Chair Sundin and I have agreed that we'll continue to discuss as we put together a final budget bill. But that's what the A31 is at this time. Rep. Pulaski, would you care to move that?
Mr. Chair, I'll move it.
Rep. Pulaski moves the A31 amendment. Any discussion, members? Seeing none, all those, turn your cameras on. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raise your thumb. Aye.
I,
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion still carries. Amendment is adopted. A31 amendment is adopted. So next provision, Mr. Knopf.
Okay, Mr. Chair and members, there is no seed language in this agreement. And the next one it's with Senate file. It was section 5 of the Senate file, but that's been adopted in the GK 0008 amendment. There is going to be amendment to that later, but this part is not being amended in that amendment. So that's already been adopted. I just wanted, and on the food handler and vending machine license fees dedication, there is nothing in this agreement on that. That would be a budget issue anyway. Mr. Chair and members, we do have both sides had the wild game processors. Senate was section 6 and 11 and House 18. What you have now is you have a House amendment, the A19 House amendment, which is a compromise position between the House and the Senate. And so that amendment contains all of the language. You wouldn't need to look at the side by side. It's the amendment basically just is in place of what was in either side.
And Mr. Knopf, for members, you want to just walk through the amendment briefly. We did find compromise between the House and Senate on this, member. So if you want to just do that, do a 30-second walkthrough, that'd be probably insightful.
Sure, Mr. Chair. Let me get it here.
And I can even start out, members, if you recall, the Senate bill had a 90-day period that the garage guys could process wild game or deer, just deboning or taking the fur off or getting kind of the meat cut off the bones, not making it into meat or anything for sale. But the House had a $20,000 limit annually instead. What we've done is to achieve the desired goal, we've agreed upon a $20,000 limit as stipulated in the House, or up to 200 deer. And so that's one of the provisions. House language had registration required. This, working with the department and the Chair Sundin and the interest groups, this would have a voluntary registration, encouraged, but not necessarily required. But disposal was a key issue, and so Mr. Knopf, I'll let you kind of take over from there. But we came to agreement on just in the endemic zones that waste carcasses would be taken care of, consistent with how the DNR rules read. But Mr. Knopf, you want to just touch on that, and then we can move the motion.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, that's in subdivision 5 in the amendment. It basically says if the deer has been taken from a chronic waste and disease management area established by the Commissioner of Natural Resources, an individual processing under this section must dispose of the carcass through any disposal methods approved for the management area by the Department of Natural Resources hunting rules, or in the Department of Natural Resources hunting rules. And that's it, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Representative Pulowski, would you want to move that amendment?
Mr. Chair, this is Chair Sundin.
Sundin. Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to move the A19, and then down the line here, I'd like to have Representative Vang chime in on a couple of motions, as well as Lippert
Sure.
and Nelson. So I will move the A19.
Very good. Rep Sundin moves the A19 motion. Any questions, members? No further questions. Unmute, turn your video on. All those in favor say aye and raise your thumb.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same.
Aye.
Motion prevails. A19 is adopted. Thank you, Mr. Knopf. Next provision.
Mr. Chair, the next one is the cottage food license exemption modified. You've already adopted the GK 0008 amendment, and what you need to do here is just adopt the GK 00011 amendment to that, which takes out that the every 5 years increasing the amount that would be exempt from the license fee, and also allowing for the easier online training. So it would be a one-time increase in January of 2022, and then and that's it. So basically, it just takes out some language. It's a pretty simple amendment. It just it takes out the ongoing part of the language and makes it just a one-time increase. So we're taking out the end every 5 years thereafter.
Okay. Representative Vang, would you want to move that motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I move to reconsider the motion GK 008, which was previously adopted, and then I can move the GK 0011.
Mr. Chair, in
Rep Vang, I think we can just move the GK 00011, but Mr. Knopf, you want to clarify that?
yeah, Mr. Chair, that's what I would recommend. Just adopt. We're not in floor sessions here. This is we don't need to follow some of those necessary protocols. Under this, I think the motion is to adopt the GK 0011 amendment to the previously adopted GK 008 amendment. That's all you need to do. I don't think we need to bring it back out the whole.
Representative Vang, does that make sense?
Yes, so then
Okay.
I'll move to adopt the GK 0011 to put it to a vote before the committee.
As specified by council.
Yes, as specified by council.
Representative Vang moves the GK 00, and is it 3 zeros, Mr. Knopf, or 2?
Actually, Mr. Chair, it's 2 zeros. I forgot.
2 0. GK
No.
0011 amendment is moved by Representative Vang to modify the GK 0008 amendment previously adopted. Any further questions, members? This does just take out the ongoing inflator, leaves it as a one-time increase instead of every 5 years thereafter. So no further discussion. All those in favor of the Vang motion, please signify by saying aye and raise your thumb. Turn your videos off.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion prevails. The GK 0011 amendment is adopted. Mr. Knopf.
Mr. Chair, we've got the House-only Board of Animal Health modified. There's a House alternative. It's the House Amendment A22. It should have been sent out.
Okay,
And again, here's another one where you don't need to look at the side by side. It's wholly contained within the amendment.
and Mr. Knopf, why don't you recap the amendment for members?
Well, Mr.
Briefly.
Chair, it adds one more livestock producer to the Board of Animal Health, to go from 3 to 4. And at least one of the 4 must be a member of the federally recognized tribe in Minnesota. So it'd be a livestock producers that's also from a federally recognized, federally recognized tribe located in Minnesota. So the board would go from 5 members to 6, with now 4 livestock producers and 2 veterinarians.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, I move to adopt the A22.
Representative Vang moves to adopt, what's the number again? I didn't hear that.
A22.
The A22 amendment. Members, any questions on this? And maybe just for a little background for anybody that might have a question. This was significantly worked through by Chair Sundin, myself, and several others. But this was the compromise language. Also the concern with some CWD on the reservation lands. This tribal member would assumedly be able to participate or bring back some of that information to and fro from the board to the concerned areas, as well as concerned areas to the board. And so, but it would be keep the focus on livestock, which is the primary focus of the Board of Animal Health. And so we worked long and hard to come to this agreement, but we got there. And so any further questions on that, just to let people know. But that is the amendment. And essentially there's 3 livestock farmers on there now. It'll be 4 now, one of those being from a tribal area.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chair, does the tribal member that's being recognized here, besides being a livestock producer, do they also have to be a veterinarian of whether small or large?
Senator Anderson, no, they would not have to be. It would not be required, but they could be, but not a prerequisite. So that was language we now agreed upon. It achieved the idea of making sure the board always stayed focused on producers' issues and interests, as well as the current veterinary science. And so that's the last language we traded back and forth and came to agreement on.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, members? Having none, no further discussion. All those in favor of the Representative Vang's motion, A22, right, Mr. Knopf?
Mr. Chair, that's correct.
To support the A22 amendment, say aye and raise your thumb, turn your cameras off.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion prevails. The A22 amendment has passed. Mr. Knopf, next provision.
Mr. Chair, there's several Board of Animal Health provisions in here. What this would be is it's a page R33 and 34. We're not going to go to R52, and we don't need section 19. But if you look at 12 and 13, 12 would be, or 13, let's get it in front. Oh, me, sorry, too many documents here.
That's all right. Go ahead.
This would be with regard to CWD management with the Board of Animal Health. And so it would be adopting, if I remember correctly, is you're adopting section 13 from the Senate side. That's moving the date when depopulation must occur. That was discussed earlier, and I don't think the House had any trouble with that one. But we're not adopting section 12. You have an amendment that replaces section 12 on the Senate side. It's a House amendment. It's the 821 amendment. And what it does is it basically says that they can if they're within an endemic zone, a survey farm, they can move their deer off-site once there is an approved live animal test, and and it shows a negative test. And then also complies with other requirements of the Board of Animal Health. So that's the compromise language on that provision.
So members, I'll just dive into this briefly. The House and us made concessions. Our language originally, Senator Weber's language, didn't allow the endemic zones to go out 15 miles to stop the movement of deer. The House did not have that language. As the prior motion we just passed was part of our broad discussions, and the agreement here was, we found agreement that there's promise on the near term horizon of what seems to be a promising test for live deer, live animal tests from the University of Minnesota. Perhaps it'll come somewhere else, but the U of M has made a recent announcement of a lot of progress on this front. So if that comes, then it would allow the deer movement, but until then, the status quo would be allowed. So that's what Mr. Knopf is recapping in the A21. So Mr. Knopf, am I correct? We'd want to just move section 13, the previous, the similar agreeable language plus the A21. Would that be the correct motion?
Mr. Chair, that's great.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, this is Sundin, and I will offer that motion.
Okay. Chair Sundin moves to approve section 13 and the A21 amendment. Discussion, members? No further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raise your thumb. Turn your cameras off. Aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion prevails. Thank you, Rep. Sundin. Mr. Knopf.
And Mr. Chair, I don't know if you have an agreement on the bioincentive program. I guess that it sounds like there was and then there's not. Are we going to do any of
There's
that?
one provision in there that I think we have agreement on, just the language on restricting dollars for being used for lobbyists. It was in the.
And then also, are they going to be able to reapply if they didn't get their full amount?
No, that's not part of the agreed upon.
Okay, so it's only those provisions about the lobbyists that are being adopted.
That's the understanding of today with us, as of today.
Yep. So,
Yeah.
Mr. Knopf, you need a little time to get that one put together, or do you want to?
No, I don't.
So that at the end?
I mean, it's on R34 to 39. And
Tell us which line to move.
And what you're doing is adopting only the language related to not hiring a lobbyist. So nothing else will be moved in those sections. Sorry, we should have probably had an amendment for that. I was thinking you were taking both parts. And so it will be just the lobbyist language that will be included. We'll make sure Colby and I will get the right language in there.
Is there a line to refer to, Mr. Knopf, or what? Or do you want to just read the language into the record so we have it as an oral amendment then?
Yes, Mr. Chair. But Mr. Sullivan's on and wants to help me out here. He can do it.
Colby, do you have the language handy?
Mr. Chair and members, yeah, this is Colby. I believe the conferees to adopt just the language prohibiting compensating a lobbyist with bioincentive payments. That would be House Sections 22, which is on R36, House Section 25, which is on R37, and House Section 27 found on page R38.
Okay, that's just pertaining to the restrictions on the lobbyist, I believe.
That's correct.
Sullivan.
Mr. Chair, that's the House's understanding as well. So
Okay.
I will make that motion.
Chair Sundin makes the motion. Any questions on that, members? And Joel, you follow that as well? Any questions, members?
Yes, Mr. Chair, that's correct.
That's
Yes.
correct. No further questions, members. So that's the one provision we've agreed to on this at this point in time. The rest will be pushed off to budget discussions or may not happen. So no further discussion. All those in favor, say aye and raise your thumb. Turn your videos off. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Other opposed, same sign. Motion prevails. Mr. Knopf.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, the next one is the Rural Finance Authority Agroforestry Loan Program modified. That would be the House position. It's on pages R43, 44, and R52. So it would be the House provisions on those sections.
And Rep. Sundin, do you want to make that motion?
Certainly, I'll move adoption.
Any discussion on that, members? That language will allow forestry to be part of the RFA program like it used to be. The House originally had this language and we found compromise and agreement on that. So any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye and raise your thumb. Turn your videos off. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion prevails. Zooming right along, Mr. Knopf.
Mr. Chair, just a couple more to go here. The next one would be the Senate only on the veterinarian license exemption for certified EMTs that are working on a wounded police dog, wounded in service. And it's a Senate position on section set. It's R47, R48, and it's section 17 on the Senate side.
Any person, any House member specifically want to move that, or any Chair Sundin?
I think Representative Nelson would like to move that.
Representative Nelson, would you make that motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to move this motion.
Okay. To the EMT vet dog motion by a representative, or vet dog, I shouldn't say that, EMT motion pertaining to trained dogs. Any questions on that, members? No further discussion. All those in favor say aye and raise your thumb. Turn your videos on.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion prevails. Thank you, Representative Nelson. Mr. Knopf.
Mr. Chair, the last one that I have is a House-only Farmerland Remediation Act. And my understanding is they also made changes to the length of time. None of that would be included. It would just be section 34, which extends the Mediation Act beyond June of 2022. So there would be just House position on section 34 would be the only part we're moving here.
Chair Sundin, if it's okay, I'll make that motion.
That's fine.
The chair will move section, remind me that again, Mr. Knopf, 34?
Mr. Chair, section 34, yes.
Move section 34 on extending the farmer and lender mediation sunset 5 years. Any discussion, members? All those in favor signify by saying aye and raise your thumb. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Nope.
Motion prevails.
And then, Mr. Chair, that's all I have.
Okay,
The only thing now would be a motion to, unless somebody has something else that they need to talk about, would be a motion to kind of button it up, to have this all prepared as a conference report and to allow nonpartisan staff the ability to correct any language to make sure that the conference committee's will is achieved. We will work with the revisor's office and get a conference report. So basically, you need a motion now just to approve the entire thing and get the conference report prepared with a signature page.
Mr. Knopf, I'll move that motion. Chair Sundin, any comments or any other questions, members?
No, thank you. I urge ratification of this package.
Other questions, members? Discussion? Having none, all those in favor signify by saying aye and raise your thumb. Turn your videos on.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion prevails. And before we just zoom away, just let Colby or Greg look through it. Any notes briefly, or Nancy or Joel, if you have any comments, I just wanted to give us a few seconds or time to make sure everybody's we're on the same page. I think it covers everything I recall as well. But Joel or Nancy, why don't you weigh in with just any comments if we've missed anything, and then Colby and Greg, I'll just finish off with you guys.
Senator Westrom, this is Joel. That appears to be the agreement that we reached. Also, I would just like to add Senator Murphy has her hand up.
Okay. And Nancy, any comments from you? And then we'll go to Senator Murphy.
I concur with Joel.
You concur. Okay. Senator Murphy.
Thanks, Mr. Chair and Chair Sundin. I am hoping that before we sign off that you could let us know which issues that are left unadopted you think will roll up into the larger budget negotiation. And I also would love it if you could share with us what you anticipate will be the role for the members of this conference committee after tomorrow in pursuit of the final work on this area of policy and budget.
Well, thank you, Senator Murphy. Good point. And maybe while I'm talking, I'm going to just prep for Mr. Knopf or Mr. Sullivan, or else Nancy, Joel, whichever of you three or four would want to just touch on it. There are some provisions we've agreed to just not address this year. Other provisions we've agreed to try to continue to negotiate, but as we referred to them, kick off to the budget discussions. And so what I'm hearing from you, Senator Murphy, is just to walk through that, just to apprise the conferees, because those are provisions that aren't in this agreed upon language that we just moved. So we'll come back to that. To answer your other part of the question, it's a little hard to say because I don't know if we're going to get called back into a special session a day or soon after Monday the 17th when we adjourn. And if we did, that would certainly facilitate a better conference committee process, so where we could reconvene in a special session format and through committees or conferences. And then, of course, each body would have to reappoint all of us. So to the extent the bodies do that, I certainly look forward to working with all of our 10 conferees here as we continue to work through the budget issues. So hopefully that could be achieved if the format gets set up right. If we don't get called into special session, then it becomes always trickier because it's working groups unofficially, informally, not subject to the committee, Senate and House rules and committee process. So I'm having a little hard time saying for sure how things would go, but the best I can. That's how I see it. Chair Sundin and I will certainly try to work those issues as much as we can, but it depends upon how formalized the conference committee would get restructured, depending upon what happens after Monday. Senator Murphy, does that help answer some of your questions? And then I'll pitch back to one of the staff to walk through.
It does, Mr. Chair, and I have one more quick one for you before you pitch it back to the staff, and that is, I know that a number of members have been involved in the work of the negotiation and compromise on the provisions that we've just adopted. Was the Department of Ag involved in that as well?
Senator Murphy, by all means, they were involved to greater extents on some provisions, others provisions not as much, but they were involved. Sometimes just through calls to the commissioner or their government liaisons. I think they provided us in a few cases some language suggestion or review of language that they said was fine. I'll maybe let Chair Sundin comment on that as well. Chair Sundin.
Oh, thank you, Chair Westrom. I've been in contact with the department almost on a daily basis, sometimes more than they might want, but they were very helpful in our decision making here.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair. do we lose the chair?
Yes, I think we may have lost Chair Westrom here. So Chair Sundin, do you want to take over? I see Representative Pulaski's hands up, maybe.
Certainly, let's recognize Chair Pulowski.
Representative Sundin, and when Representative Westrom comes back, is this the final meeting of this conference committee? Do we intend another meeting when we have in writing what we just approved today?
This is, as far as I know, this is the final meeting until we're called back. We'll be at the House, on the House floor tomorrow with this product.
Well, Mr. Chair and members, I would now request that we take a roll call vote rather than a voice vote. If this is the final report, then I think we need a roll call vote for the record. So I would request that we take a roll call before we end this committee meeting.
Thank you. That's might be a great idea. Would Mr. Hanson see if he can roust up the Chair Westrom and conduct a proper vote?
I will, Chair Sundin. He's calling me right now, so let me see if I can't play the role of technological advisor here and get him reconnected. So thank you.
Right.
Mr. Chair?
I guess I'm the Mr. Chair now.
Yeah.
Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Chair Sundin. While we're waiting for Chair Westrom to return, maybe the staff could help us understand which provisions may still be going into that larger negotiation going forward, if that list is available. That'd be helpful.
I can thank you, Senator. I can name the top three, I guess. We're stuck on some language at the bioincentive program. That's an initiative of mine. The biofuels language is there's still some of that hanging out there, and the treated seed issue. I believe that was a measure brought forth by Chair Hanson in the committee originally, and those are the three sticking points right now that we'll be working on for certain.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I see Chair Pulowski. You're on mute. Chair Pulowski, you're on mute.
If he wants to.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, broadband is also another issue we did not address. And there was Senate language that dealt with broadband. And I realize it's a big fiscal issue and it will roll over into the special, but broadband will be another issue that we'll have to address.
We got emerging farmers as well. That's an issue that we'll be addressing as well. So that'll be found in sections 22, 27, 22, 25, and 27. So yeah, if you want to examine them and read up on those, that'd be terrific as well. So I guess we're just on hold until we see some money that can leverage some movement on these issues. My apologies to Chair Pulowski for skipping over the broadband. We've just put that on hold the whole time. And again, we're just waiting for money.
Chair Sundin, this is Joel.
Okay, just keep me listening what you're let me look.
Just updating here. Senator Westrom lost power at his home. So he's going to be trying to flip his breaker back on and get back on here. So if we just don't mind maybe waiting a minute or two, he'll be right back. All right, Chair Sundin, Senator Westrom should be in the meeting.
Great. I think I'm back.
Chair Westrom, this is Sundin again. There's a desire to have a recorded vote on ratification of our actions today. If you'd entertain that, that would be satisfy the desires of the committee.
Very good. And thank you, Chair Sundin, for stepping in. I guess I had an outlet breaker pop and I didn't know my phone was or computer was going to go dead. So sorry about that. So did you cover the provisions that Senator Murphy just wanted to touch on? It sounded like.
Yes. Yes, we did.
Very good. So with that, we'll just we'll just take a roll call vote on the final motion that Mr. Knopf had made to ratify the package. And Mr. Knopf, can you just restate that, and then we'll take a roll call on that. And do we have Caitlin? Are you on to be able to take the roll call? Mr. Knopf.
Mr. Chair and members, yeah, the motion is to adopt all of the provisions that you've adopted into a conference report as a final action on the conference committee report being prepared for signatures, and also allowing staff some leeway in making sure that we effectuate the agreement that you have in case there are some technical things that we need to do. But that's the motion, Mr. Chair.
Okay. For that motion, members, roll call have been requested. Caitlin, are you on, or do we have somebody that will take the roll?
Senator Westrom, I'm not seeing her come on, but I can take the role for
Okay.
Senate.
Committee Administrator Joel Hanson can take the roll. Joel?
And Kyle is on, so I think Chair Westrom, if it's all right, I think Kyle will take the role for the House.
Oh, Kyle, why don't you, can you do that for us?
I sure can. Chair Sundin.
Aye.
Sundin votes aye. Representative Vang.
Aye.
Vang votes aye. Representative Lippert.
Lippert, aye.
Lippert votes aye. Representative Pulowski.
Pulowski votes aye.
Pulowski votes aye. Representative Nelson.
Nelson votes aye.
Nelson votes aye. That's 5 ayes on the House side, Chair Westrom.
Very good.
Okay.
I take it on the Senate side, or do you want Kyle to do the Senate?
I can do the Senate, Chair. That would be okay. Chair Westrom.
Chair Westrom votes yes.
Chair Westrom votes yes. Senator Anderson.
Anderson votes yes.
Anderson votes yes. Senator Dornick.
Yes.
Senator Dornick votes yes. Senator Goggin.
Goggin votes yes.
Senator Goggin votes yes. Senator Murphy.
Murphy E. votes yes.
Senator Murphy E. votes yes. Mr. Chair, that's 5 yes votes on the Senate side.
With a vote of unanimous vote 10-0, the motion does pass. Motion is adopted. Members, thank you for your good work. Any concluding questions or anything anybody has to talk about?
Mr. Chair, it's
Representative Pulowski, and thank you for their request. That was a good idea.
No, you're welcome. You made an observation at our first meeting when I was introducing myself with Mr. Hanson, and you said that we had made him a good Republican. I just wanted to clarify something, that for 37 years, I taught American government, not GOP government, not DFL government, but American government. And the model legislature that Mr. Hanson so well participated in for 4 years was nonpartisan. But I did stress one thing: public service. And Mr. Hanson has been an exemplary example of public service, even as a Republican. I just wanted that clarification.
Very good. And he does think for himself, Representative Pulowski, and I got to believe that was part of your teachings as well as many others. But thank you for those comments. Any other comments, members? Otherwise, thank you so much for carving out a part of your Sunday here as well. This will give staff stuff to put the conference committee or the items they need to put the conference committee report together. We'll pass it around for signatures electronically. I think most of them can be, so look for that as soon as possible so we can get this up on the floor tomorrow. Will be our intention. So no further business. Chair Sundin, any final comments?
Not at this point. Thank you, Chair Westrom.
Thank you, Chair Sundin. We'll work it out tomorrow to get it through the Senate and over to the House as quick as we can. So
thank you.
With that, members, this is adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And thank you to our staff.